The stars outside the observation window burned like distant fires in the endless black of space. Danny Carter stood at his post near the main corridor of the Ascendant, a massive diplomatic cruiser belonging to the Empire. He watched the alien crew members move past him with their tall, slender frames and pale blue skin. They never looked at him. They never looked at any of the humans. Danny was 28 years old, a combat medic serving aboard the USN Valiant. He had been assigned to this mission as part of a small security team protecting Earth's delegation during peace talks with the Empire. The talks had been going on for 3 days now, and Danny had spent most of that time standing in corridors and waiting for something to happen. They were a cold people. Their society valued logic and efficiency above everything else. Emotions were seen as weaknesses, distractions that clouded judgment and wasted time. Danny had learned this during his briefings before the mission. He had seen it proven true in every interaction he witnessed aboard the ship. The alien crew members spoke in short, clipped sentences. They did not smile. They did not laugh. They moved through the ship like machines, each one focused entirely on their assigned task. Danny found it unsettling. He missed the warmth and noise of human ships, where crew members told jokes and shared meals and complained about their assignments. The Ascendant was currently crossing through an asteroid field on its way to a neutral space station. The crossing was supposed to take 12 hours. Danny had been on duty for 6 of those hours, and his legs were starting to ache from standing in one place for so long. He shifted his weight and glanced down the corridor. A group of servants hurried past, their arms loaded with supplies. They were heading toward the private quarters of Princess Inn, one of the most important members of the delegation. Danny had seen the princess only twice during the voyage. She was young by standards, with sharp features and eyes the color of frozen water. She carried herself with the kind of confidence that came from growing up with power and privilege. She had looked at Danny once, and her gaze had passed over him like he was part of the furniture. He did not take it personally. They looked at all humans that way. A low rumble passed through the ship. Danny felt it in his boots, a vibration that traveled up through the floor and into his bones. He frowned and looked around. The crew members had stopped moving. They stood frozen in place, their heads tilted slightly as if listening for something. Then the alarm started. Red lights flashed along the corridor walls. A loud, wailing siren filled the air. Danny's hand went to the communicator on his belt as he tried to figure out what was happening. The ship shuddered again, harder this time. Danny stumbled and caught himself against the wall. He heard shouting in the language, words he did not understand but whose meaning was clear from the tone. Something had gone very wrong. His communicator crackled to life. The voice of Captain Gregg came through, sharp and urgent. He told Danny that the ship had suffered a hull breach in the lower decks. Coolant was flooding several sections. All human personnel were ordered to report to the emergency assembly point immediately. Danny acknowledged the order and started moving, but as he ran down the corridor he noticed something strange. They were not panicking. They moved quickly but calmly, following their emergency protocols with the same cold efficiency they brought to everything else. They did not help each other. They did not check on their companions. Each one simply focused on their own survival. Danny passed the entrance to Princess' quarters and saw her standing in the doorway. She was giving orders to her servants in a low, steady voice. Her expression showed no fear, no worry, nothing at all. She might have been discussing the weather instead of a life-threatening emergency. Then Danny heard something that made him stop. A sound came from somewhere below, a deep, rumbling cry that was part roar and part whimper. It was the sound of an animal in distress. Danny had heard similar sounds before on Earth when he had helped rescue animals from natural disasters during his training. He looked at the princess. She had heard it too. Her eyes flickered toward the floor, toward the lower decks where the sound had come from. One of her servants spoke to her quickly. Danny caught a few words that he recognized from his language briefings. They were talking about something called. They were talking about the princess's pet. Danny had heard about during the voyage. The creature was a beast, a rare and valuable animal that resembled a massive lion with silver fur and a mane that glowed with soft blue light. The princess had brought it aboard as a symbol of her status. It was supposed to be worth more than most starships. The servant told the princess that was trapped on one of the flooding decks. The creature's holding area had been breached. Water and coolant were pouring in. If someone did not rescue it soon, it would drown. Princess was silent for a moment. Danny watched her face, waiting for some sign of concern, some indication that she cared about the creature that had been her companion. Instead, she shook her head. She told her servants that the risk was too great. The lower decks were flooding too quickly. Anyone who went down there might not come back. Was just an animal, it could be replaced. Their lives could not. She ordered them to seal the deck. Danny felt something cold settle in his stomach. He watched as the servants moved to obey, their fingers dancing over a control panel beside the corridor entrance. He heard the heavy thunk of blast doors closing somewhere below. He heard the distant cry of the trapped creature grow louder, more desperate. The princess turned away and walked back into her quarters. She did not look back. Danny stood frozen in place. His orders were clear. He was supposed to report to the emergency assembly point. He was supposed to follow protocol. He was supposed to do exactly what they were doing, focus on his own survival and let everything else fall away. But he could not move. He kept hearing that sound, that desperate cry echoing up from the lower decks. He kept seeing the princess's face, empty and uncaring, as she condemned her own pet to die alone in the dark. Danny had grown up on a farm in Kansas. His family had kept dogs and cats and horses. He had learned from a young age that animals were not just property. They were living beings with feelings and fears and the capacity for loyalty and love. His father had always told him that you could judge a person by how they treated animals. By that measure, Danny thought, they were found wanting. He made his decision. Instead of running toward the assembly point, he turned and ran toward the lower decks. His boots pounded against the metal floor as warning lights flashed around him. He ignored the voice of Captain calling through his communicator, demanding to know where he was going. He reached a sealed bulkhead and stopped. Through the small window in the door, he could see coolant flooding the corridor beyond. The liquid was pale blue and slightly glowing. It was rising fast. And there, at the far end of the corridor, pressed against a cargo container, was. The beast was enormous, easily twice the size of any lion Danny had ever seen. Its silver fur was matted with coolant. Its glowing mane flickered weakly, pulsing in time with its rapid heartbeat. Its amber eyes were wide with terror. Danny looked at the creature. The creature looked back at him. In that moment, Danny saw something he had not expected. He saw intelligence in those eyes. He saw fear and hope and a desperate plea for help. He saw a living being that did not want to die. Danny placed his hand on the emergency bypass panel beside the bulkhead. He knew that opening this door was against every regulation in the book. He knew that he could be court-martialed for this. He knew that he might die down here, drowning in alien coolant on a ship full of people who would not mourn him. But he also knew that he could not walk away. He entered his override code and pulled the lever. The bulkhead groaned and began to open. The coolant hit Danny like a wall of ice. It flooded through the opening bulkhead and soaked his uniform in seconds. The liquid burned where it touched his exposed skin, leaving a tingling sensation that quickly turned to pain. He had read in his briefings that coolant was mildly toxic to humans. Prolonged exposure could cause chemical burns and respiratory problems. Danny did not care. He pushed forward into the flooded corridor. The coolant was already up to his waist. It glowed with that strange pale blue light, casting eerie shadows on the walls around him. Warning lights flashed overhead, painting everything in alternating shades of red and blue. The alarm was still wailing, but it sounded muffled now, distant and unreal. His communicator crackled. Lisa Monroe's voice came through, tight with worry. She was the ship's engineer, one of the few humans aboard who had befriended Danny during the voyage. She asked him what he was doing. She told him that the sensors showed someone had opened the sealed bulkhead on Deck 7. She asked him if he had lost his mind. Danny told her that there was a creature trapped down here. He told her that the princess had abandoned it. He told her that he was going to get it out. Lisa was silent for a moment. Then she told him that he had less than 4 minutes before the deck was completely flooded. She told him that they had already written off this entire section. She told him that no one was coming to help him. Danny thanked her for the information and kept moving. The coolant was up to his chest now. Each step was a struggle against the rising tide. His legs felt heavy and slow. The cold was seeping into his bones, making his muscles stiff and clumsy. He could feel his body starting to shake. But he could see ahead of him. The beast had climbed onto a cargo container to escape the rising liquid. It crouched there with its massive paws tucked beneath its body, its glowing mane casting a soft blue light across its silver fur. Its amber eyes were fixed on Danny, watching his approach with an expression that was almost human in its intensity. Danny reached the cargo container and stopped. The coolant was lapping at his chin now. He had to tilt his head back to keep it out of his mouth. He could taste the chemical tang of it on his lips, bitter and metallic. He looked up the beast looked down at him. Danny had no idea if the creature could understand human speech. He had no idea if it would let him help or if it would attack him in its fear. But he started talking anyway. He kept his voice calm and steady, the way his father had taught him to speak to frightened animals back on the farm. He told that he was not going to hurt him. He told him that he was there to help. He told him that they were going to get out of this together but needed to trust him. He told him that he knew the princess had left him behind, but that did not mean everyone would. He told him that some people, some humans, did not leave others to die. Listened. His ears, which had been pressed flat against his skull, slowly rose. His trembling eased slightly. He made a low sound in his throat, something between a growl and a whimper. Danny reached up and placed his hand on the edge of the cargo container. He pulled himself up, straining against the weight of his soaked uniform and the drag of the coolant. His arms burned with the effort. His fingers slipped on the wet metal, but he kept climbing until he was kneeling beside the beast. Did not attack him. The creature simply watched with those intelligent amber eyes, waiting to see what Danny would do next. Danny looked around. The coolant was still rising. In a few more minutes it would reach the top of the cargo container. They needed to move, and they needed to move now. He turned back to and spoke again. He told the beast that they needed to go. He pointed toward the bulkhead he had come through, still visible above the surface of the coolant. He told that if they swam for it, they could make it out before the deck sealed completely. Followed his gesture. The beast looked at the distant bulkhead, then back at Danny. Something shifted in its eyes, some decision being made. Then stood up. The beast was even more impressive up close. Its shoulders came up to Danny's chest. Its paws were the size of dinner plates. Its mane rippled with that soft bioluminescent glow, and Danny could feel warmth radiating from it, cutting through the cold of the coolant. Danny slid off the cargo container and into the coolant. The liquid closed over his head for a moment before he kicked back to the surface. He gasped for air and turned to look at. The beast hesitated on top of the container. Danny could see the fear in its eyes. Did not want to enter the water. Whatever instincts drove the creature, they were screaming at it to stay out of the glowing liquid. Danny treaded water and kept talking. He told that he understood. He told him that it was scary, but he promised that he would not let anything happen to him. He promised that they would make it out together. He held out his hand. Looked at the hand. The beast's nostrils flared as it caught Danny's scent. Then, slowly, carefully, it stepped off the cargo container and into the coolant. The beast sank for a moment before its powerful legs began to paddle. Its head broke the surface, mane streaming with glowing liquid, eyes wide with fear but fixed on Danny. It swam toward him with desperate, churning strokes. Danny grabbed hold of its mane and held on. Together, they began to swim toward the bulkhead. The journey felt like it lasted forever. The coolant dragged at them, pulling them down with every stroke. Danny's lungs burned. His muscles screamed. He could feel struggling beside him, the beast's breath coming in harsh gasps. But they kept going. They reached the bulkhead with seconds to spare. Danny hauled himself through the opening and turned to pull after him. The beast scrambled through, its claws scraping against the metal floor as it fought for purchase. Behind them, the emergency seal activated. The bulkhead slammed shut with a thunderous boom, cutting off the flooded corridor. A moment later, Danny heard the muffled roar of water filling the space they had just escaped. He collapsed against the wall, gasping for breath. Collapsed beside him, the beast's massive body heaving with exhaustion. They lay there together, dripping coolant onto the floor, too tired to move. Danny heard footsteps approaching. He looked up and saw Captain Gregg standing over him. The captain's face was a mixture of fury and disbelief. His uniform was neat and dry, untouched by the chaos of the emergency. Demanded to know what Danny thought he was doing. He reminded him that he had orders to report to the assembly point. He told him that he had violated at least 6 different regulations. He told him that this stunt could end his career. Danny looked up at his captain. He was too tired to argue. He simply said that he could not leave the creature to die. He said that no one deserved to die alone and afraid, not even an animal. He said that if following orders meant letting that happen, then maybe the orders were wrong. Stared at him. For a long moment, neither man spoke. Then the captain looked at. The beast had lifted its head and was watching with those steady amber eyes. Despite everything it had been through, it showed no aggression. It simply waited, calm and patient, trusting Danny to handle the situation. His expression softened. He shook his head and muttered something about humans and their stubborn hearts. Then he held out his hand and helped Danny to his feet. He told Danny that they would discuss the regulations later. For now, he said, they needed to get to the assembly point. The ship was damaged, but it would survive. The crisis was passing. Danny nodded. He looked down at who had risen to stand beside him. The beast's fur was still matted with coolant and its mane flickered weakly, but it was alive. They were both alive. Danny placed his hand on its head, feeling the warmth of the creature's body beneath his palm. He made a silent promise that he would not let anything hurt this beast again. They walked down the corridor together, the soldier and the lion, leaving a trail of glowing blue coolant behind them. 3 days had passed since the accident aboard the Ascendant. The ship had limped out of the asteroid field and was now making its slow way toward the nearest repair station. The damage was serious but not fatal. The engineers worked around the clock to keep the vessel functioning, their movements precise and efficient despite the chaos that had nearly destroyed them all. Danny Carter had spent those 3 days in the medical bay, recovering from his exposure to the coolant. The chemical burns on his skin were healing slowly, leaving patches of raw, pink flesh on his arms and face. The doctors told him he was lucky. A few more minutes in that liquid and the damage would have been permanent. Had refused to leave his side. The beast had stayed in the medical bay the entire time, curled up on the floor beside Danny's bed. The medical staff had tried to remove the creature at first. They said it was unsanitary. They said it was against regulations. They said the beast belonged in the cargo hold with the other animals. Danny had refused. He told them that stayed with him, and if they had a problem with that, they could take it up with Captain. The captain had said nothing, which they took as agreement. So stayed. The beast had recovered faster than Danny. Its silver fur had regained its shine, and its bioluminescent mane glowed steadily once more. It spent its time sleeping beside Danny's bed or watching the door with alert amber eyes. Whenever someone approached, would lift its head and track their movements with quiet intensity. On the fourth day, Danny was finally released from the medical bay. He walked out into the corridor with padding along beside him, the beast's massive shoulder brushing against his hip. The crew members gave them a wide berth, their pale faces showing the closest thing to surprise that Danny had ever seen from them. He had barely taken 10 steps when a servant appeared before him. The alien bowed slightly and told Danny that Princess In requested his presence in her quarters. The word request was spoken in a tone that made clear it was not truly a request at all. Danny considered refusing. He had no desire to speak with the princess who had condemned to die, but he knew that refusing a royal summons could create problems for the entire human delegation. So he followed the servant, with walking silently beside him. The princess's quarters were larger than Danny had expected. The walls were decorated with tapestries showing scenes from history, and the furniture was made of some kind of dark, polished wood that gleamed in the soft lighting. Princess stood in the center of the room, her hands clasped behind her back, her frozen blue eyes fixed on Danny as he entered. She did not offer him a seat. She did not greet him. She simply looked at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she spoke. She told Danny that was her property. She explained that under law, the beast was legally bound to her house. It had been given to her by her father as a gift to mark her coming of age. Its value was beyond measure. It was one of the last beasts in existence. She told Danny that he had no right to take what belonged to her. She demanded that he return immediately. Danny listened to her words. He felt pressed closer to his leg, the beast's warm body trembling slightly. He wondered if the creature understood what was being discussed. He wondered if remembered the princess's face through the glass of the sealed bulkhead, watching as the water rose around him. Danny told the princess that he would not return. His eyes narrowed. She asked him if he understood what he was saying. She reminded him that she was royalty, that her word carried the weight of the entire empire. She told him that defying her could have consequences he could not imagine. Danny met her gaze without flinching. He told her that he understood perfectly. He told her that she had made a choice when the emergency happened. She had calculated the value of life against the risk of saving him, and she had decided that the beast was not worth the trouble. She had ordered the deck sealed. She had walked away. He told her that in human culture, that choice had consequences. When you abandoned something, you gave up your claim to it. When someone else saved what you had discarded, they earned the right to protect it. He told her that was no longer hers. The princess stared at him. For the first time since Danny had met her, something like emotion flickered across her face. It might have been anger, it might have been confusion. He could not tell. She asked him how he dared speak to her this way. She asked him if he knew who she was, what power she held, what she could do to his career, his reputation, his entire life. Danny told her that he knew exactly who she was. He told her that she was someone who had looked at a living creature and decided that its life was not worth saving. He told her that where he came from, that kind of person did not deserve respect, no matter how many titles they held. He told her that he had seen officers and soldiers sacrifice themselves for strangers because that was what humans did. They did not calculate the value of a life and throw it away when the numbers looked bad. They did not leave their companions to die alone in the dark. He looked down at, then back at the princess. He told her that had trusted her. The beast had depended on her for food, for shelter, for protection. And when the moment came when needed her most, she had failed him. Was silent. Her hands, still clasped behind her back, had tightened until her knuckles turned pale. Danny told her that he was not asking for her permission. He was not negotiating, was staying with him. If she wanted to create a diplomatic incident over it, if she wanted to destroy his career, if she wanted to bring the weight of the empire down on a single human soldier, then she was welcome to try. But he was not giving back. The princess stood motionless for a long moment. Danny could see something working behind her frozen blue eyes, some internal struggle that he could not fully understand. He wondered what it was like to grow up in a culture that taught you to suppress every emotion, to view compassion as weakness, to measure everything in terms of efficiency and cost. Finally spoke again. Her voice was quieter now, less commanding. She told Danny that she did not understand him. She told him that his behavior made no logical sense, was an animal. It had no strategic value, no political importance. There was no rational reason for Danny to risk his life, his career, everything he had, for a creature that could offer him nothing in return. Danny shook his head. He told her that she was looking at it wrong. He told her that did not need to offer him anything. The beast did not need to be valuable or useful or important, was alive. He was afraid. He needed help. That was enough. He told her that if she could not understand that, then maybe there was nothing more to say. Danny turned and walked toward the door, followed him, the beast's claws clicking softly against the polished floor. The princess called out to him before he reached the exit. Her voice sounded strange, almost uncertain. She asked him why humans cared so much about things that did not matter. Danny stopped. He thought about the question for a moment. Then he told her that maybe the problem was not that humans cared too much. Maybe the problem was that they had forgotten how to care at all. He left the princess standing alone in her quarters, surrounded by the cold beauty of her possessions, and walked out into the corridor with at his side. The USN Valiant hung in orbit around a small moon, its gray hull gleaming softly in the light of a distant star. The human crew had been transferred here after the Ascendant reached the repair station. The peace talks had been postponed while they dealt with the damage to their vessel. No one knew how long the delay would last. Danny Carter stood in his small cabin, looking out the window at the stars. Behind him, Lay stretched across the floor, taking up almost half the available space. The beast's silver fur rippled with each slow breath, and its bioluminescent mane cast a soft blue glow across the metal walls. 6 weeks had passed since the accident. 6 weeks since Danny had pulled from the flooded deck. 6 weeks since he had stood before Princess and refused to surrender the creature that had become his constant companion. The princess had not pursued the matter further. Whatever she had felt during their confrontation, she had kept it to herself. The diplomatic channels remained quiet. No formal complaint had been filed. It was as if the entire incident had been erased from official memory. But Danny knew that was not true. He had seen the way they looked at him now. There was something different in their eyes, something that might have been curiosity or confusion, or perhaps a kind of reluctant respect. He was the human who had risked everything for an animal. He was the one who had a princess and walked away unscathed. He did not care about any of that. All he cared about was. The beast had adapted to life aboard the Valiant with surprising ease. At first, the human crew had been nervous around the massive creature. They gave wide berth in the corridors and whispered to each other when they thought Danny could not hear. Some of them had complained to Captain, asking why they had to share their ship with an alien monster, but had proven them wrong. The beast was gentle. It moved through the crowded corridors with careful grace, never bumping into anyone, never growling or showing aggression. It waited patiently outside the mess hall while Danny ate his meals. It lay quietly at Danny's feet during briefings, its amber eyes tracking the movements of everyone in the room but never threatening. Slowly, the crew had begun to accept. They started calling the beast by name instead of that thing or the alien animal. They started reaching out to touch its silver fur as they passed, marveling at its warmth and softness. A few of the braver crew members even began bringing treats from the mess hall, scraps of meat that accepted with dignified gratitude. Lisa Monroe had become especially fascinated by the bond between Danny and. She was a thin woman with sharp eyes and a quick smile, always asking questions and taking notes. She told Danny that she had been researching beasts since the day he brought aboard. She had found references to them in old texts, stories about their legendary loyalty and intelligence. She told Danny that beasts were known across the galaxy for one remarkable trait: they bonded once and only once. When a beast chose a companion, it was a choice for life. The bond could not be broken, not by distance, not by time, not even by death. The beast would remain loyal to its chosen partner until its last breath. Danny asked her what that meant for. He asked her if the beast had bonded with Princess before the accident. Lisa shook her head. She told Danny that from what she had observed, had never bonded with the princess at all. The beast had been her property, her possession, but it had never truly been hers. Had been waiting, she said, waiting for someone worthy. She looked at Danny with knowing eyes. She told him that had found what it was waiting for. Danny did not know what to say to that. He looked down at the beast lying at his feet, its amber eyes watching him with calm devotion. He thought about what it meant to be chosen, to be trusted so completely by another living being. It frightened him. He told Lisa that he was a soldier. His life was dangerous and uncertain. He could be killed on any mission at any moment. What would happen if something happened to him? What would the beast do if the bond was broken? Lisa was quiet for a moment. Then she told him something he would never forget. She told him that worry was part of love. She told him that caring about something beyond yourself meant accepting the risk of loss. It meant knowing that you could be hurt and choosing to care anyway. She told him that already knew the risks. The beast had watched Danny wade into that flooded corridor. It had seen him fight against impossible odds just to save a creature he had never met. It had seen his kindness, his courage, his refusal to give up. She told Danny that had already made its choice. The beast had accepted the danger of loving a mortal, breakable human. The only question was whether Danny would accept the same. Danny thought about her words for days. He thought about them when he woke up each morning with his warm body pressed against his side. He thought about them when he felt the beast's eyes following him across the room. He thought about them when it would rest its massive head on his lap during quiet evenings, seeking nothing but his presence. He had never been responsible for another life in this way. Sure, he had comrades, friends, family, but this was different, depended on him completely. The beast had placed its entire existence in Danny's hands, trusting him to be worthy of that gift. One night Danny sat alone in the observation deck, watching the stars drift past. Lay beside him, its mane glowing softly in the darkness. The beast's amber eyes were half closed, peaceful and content. Danny reached out and placed his hand on its head. He felt the warmth of the creature's fur beneath his palm, felt the steady rhythm of its breath, felt the powerful heartbeat pulsing through its body. He made a decision. He told that he accepted the bond. He told the beast that he would not run from this, would not try to protect himself by pushing away. He told him that they were family now. Whatever happened, wherever the future took them, they would face it together. Lifted its head and looked at Danny. Something passed between them in that moment, something that did not need words. The beast pressed its forehead against Danny's chest and made a low, rumbling sound that vibrated through Danny's bones. It sounded like contentment. It sounded like home. Danny wrapped his arms around its neck and held on. He did not know what the future would bring. He did not know if he would survive the next mission, the next battle, the next crisis. But he knew that he was no longer alone. He had found something worth protecting, and he would protect it with everything he had. The stars continued their slow dance outside the observation window, indifferent to the small moment of connection happening within the ship. But for Danny and nothing else existed. There was only the warmth of the bond between them, burning bright against the cold darkness of space. The neutral space station called Haven's Rest hung at the edge of known space, a massive structure of gleaming metal and soft lights. Ships from a dozen different species docked at its ports, their hulls displaying colors and designs that represented cultures spanning half the galaxy. This was the place where enemies became partners and strangers became allies. This was where the future of human and relations would be decided. 5 months had passed since the accident aboard the Ascendant. The Peace Summit had finally resumed, and Danny Carter found himself standing once again in a corridor lined with alien dignitaries, wearing his formal uniform, trying not to fidget. Stood beside him, as always. The beast had been fitted with a simple collar bearing the symbol of the United Earth Coalition, a sign that was officially recognized as Danny's companion under human law. Some of the delegates had protested the arrangement when they first arrived. They had argued that was stolen property, that Danny had no right to claim the creature. But Ambassador In Princess Father had silenced the protests with a single raised hand. He had looked at Danny, and for a long moment his frozen blue eyes revealing nothing. Then he had declared that the matter was closed, belonged to the human. There would be no further discussion. Danny did not know why the ambassador had made that decision. He did not know what the princess had told her father about their confrontation 5 months ago, but he was grateful for the peace it brought. The summit proceeded smoothly. Human and diplomats sat across from each other at a long table, discussing trade agreements and territorial boundaries and the thousand small details that would shape their shared future. Danny stood at his post along the wall, watching and waiting, a warm presence at his side. It was during a recess in the negotiations that Princess approached him. She looked different than Danny remembered. Her sharp features had softened somehow, and her frozen blue eyes seemed less distant than before. She moved with the same careful grace, but there was something else in her bearing now, something almost hesitant. She stopped a few feet away from Danny and looked at. The beast did not growl or retreat. It simply watched her with calm amber eyes, waiting to see what she would do. Spoke quietly. She told Danny that she had spent the last 5 months thinking about what he had said to her. She told him that his words had haunted her, keeping her awake at night, forcing her to question things she had always believed to be true. She told him that society taught its children that attachments were weaknesses, emotions clouded judgment, sentiment had no place in leadership. From the moment she could walk, she had been trained to think logically, to evaluate everything in terms of cost and benefit, to never let her heart interfere with her mind. She told Danny that she had believed those teachings without question. She had believed that caring about anything beyond yourself was a flaw to be overcome, a primitive instinct that civilized beings should suppress. But then Danny had come along. She told him that watching him risk his life had shaken something inside her. She had seen him wade into that toxic coolant without hesitation. She had seen him stand before her in her own quarters and refuse to back down. She had seen him choose compassion over logic, kindness over efficiency, love over reason. And he had been right. She admitted to Danny that she had been wrong to abandon. She said the words slowly, as if they were difficult to speak. She told him that the beast had trusted her, and she had failed that trust. She told him that she had done exactly what her culture taught her to do, and in doing so, she had become something she did not want to be. She told Danny that she did not want back. The beast belonged with him now, that was clear, but she wanted something else. She asked Danny to help her understand. She asked him to explain what drove humans to care so deeply, even when logic told them they should not. She asked him how they found the strength to love things they could lose, to bond with creatures that would eventually die, to give their hearts to a universe that offered no guarantees. Danny was quiet for a moment. He thought about all the things he could say, all the explanations he could offer. But in the end, he told her that he could not fully explain it. He told her that caring was not something that could be taught through words. It was not a formula or a strategy or a logical framework. It was something that had to be felt, something that had to be experienced. But he offered her a place to start. He told her that the galaxy was vast and cold and full of dangers. Every species, human and alike, faced the same endless darkness. They were all small and fragile, drifting through a universe that did not care whether they lived or died. He told her that humans had learned something from that knowledge. They had learned that the answer to the darkness was not to become cold in return. The answer was to hold onto warmth wherever they found it, to protect it fiercely, to share it freely. They had learned that love was not a weakness to be suppressed, but a strength to be cherished. He told her that had not needed to be valuable to deserve saving. The beast had not needed to offer anything in return, had only needed to be alive, to be afraid, to need help. That was enough. That would always be enough. Listened in silence. Her frozen blue eyes glistened with something that might have been tears, though Danny knew that rarely showed such emotion. When he finished speaking, she bowed her head. It was a gesture of respect, Danny realized, something that royalty almost never offered to outsiders. She held the bow for a long moment, then raised her eyes to meet his. She thanked him, not for saving, she said, but for showing her that strength and compassion were not opposites. They were the same thing, expressed in different ways. She told him that she had much to learn, and she hoped that humans would be willing to teach her. Danny told her that learning went both ways. He told her that humans were not perfect. They made mistakes. They got angry and scared and selfish just like anyone else. But they tried. They kept trying to be better, to do better, to love better. He told her that was all anyone could ask. The summit concluded 3 days later with a new treaty signed by both civilizations. It included provisions that had never been seen before in law, provisions for the ethical treatment of living creatures, provisions that recognized the value of life beyond mere utility. It was a small change in the grand scheme of things, a single step on a very long road. But it was a beginning. Danny returned to the USN Valiant with at his side. The crew greeted them with cheers and smiles, welcoming them home. Captain shook Danny's hand and told him that he had done something remarkable, something that would echo through history long after they were all gone. Danny did not feel remarkable. He felt tired and grateful and ready to rest. But he smiled and thanked his captain and made his way to his cabin with Padding along beside him. That night Danny sat in his cabin and looked out at the stars. Lay beside him, its massive head resting on his lap, its glowing mane casting soft blue light across the room. The beast's amber eyes were half-closed, peaceful and content. Danny ran his fingers through silver fur. He thought about everything that had happened, everything that had changed. He thought about a princess learning to feel, about a treaty that would protect lives yet unborn, about a universe that was just a little bit warmer than it had been before. He thought about kindness and how it spread. He thought about love and how it endured. He thought about what it meant to be human, out here among the stars, in a galaxy full of coldness and darkness and danger. He thought about how easy it would be to become hard, to become calculating, to become like they had been before this all began. And he thought about this strange and beautiful creature who had chosen him for reasons he would never fully understand. He thought about the bond between them, unbreakable and eternal, a small light burning against the vast darkness of space. Danny leaned down and pressed his forehead against his head. The beast made that low, rumbling sound of contentment, and Danny felt the vibration pass through his body like a heartbeat. They stayed like that for a long time, the soldier and his lion, proof that even in the coldest reaches of the universe, kindness endures, compassion survives, love finds a way. And sometimes, all it takes is one person willing to walk into the flood.